This Xenothreat has been a bit of a mess. Performance issues, bugs, the mission getting stuck, UI problems, friendly fire. I've personally had a pretty awful experience with this. And honestly, if you think about it from a new player's point of view, it's a bit of a disgrace. Are dynamic events really worth all the effort at this stage of development?
The mission feature team is always examining and reevaluating the global events that run throughout the year. Do they perform the way we intend they should? Not just in frame rate, but also in engagement, enjoyment, enchantment, entertainment. And if they're not, perhaps they need enhancement or extinguishment.
I've actually always been a Xenothreat enjoyer. I think I've played it every time CIG has run the event. It's always had issues, but when it first arrived, it managed to bring players together to do something that was a bit different from everything else in the game. The cargo aspect was novel, and the big battles were a taste of what a lot of people want from Star Citizen, even if they were a slideshow. But the first problem with these bespoke larger missions that CIG has created is that they do tend to lose their sparkle when you play them over and over and over again. Yes, CIG have tweaked aspects this time around, but on the whole, it's the same thing, and in order for you to actually get to the major change, the boarding of the Idris, the whole event actually has to work. All of the missions in the game suffer from this problem, really. Siege of Orison, Jump Town, even smaller examples like Wake of Disaster and Security Post-Korea, down to bunker missions and box deliveries. Once you've done these events a few times, they lose their shine. We've heard so many times over the years that missions in the game are meant to be modular, that they can be chained together and even spawned by player actions with counter missions, all run by this crazy system called Quantum in Tony Z's mind. The game of Tony Z's dreams in theory sounds great, but it does remain a dream, and probably for the long-term future. How much time has gone into these broken dynamic global events that the mission team could have been using for more important things? I'm pretty sure the standard missions in the game could be in a lot better place if we never had Xenothreat Siege and, dare I whisper it, Ninetales Lockdown.
We realized there's no point maintaining this global event if no one plays it, you know?
But even if Star Citizen had overall more and better missions, CIG will never be able to give us enough custom created theme park style content to keep players interested. We hear a lot about the fact that CIG have created this giant sandbox for us to create our own fun, but when it comes down to it, it's like we're sat in a giant sandbox with a single spade and nothing else. There is only your imagination, and that will only take you so far. We need sandcastle molds, we need stones, we need flags, we need more tools. Now, I'm fully aware that they're not the same team of people, but imagine if the dev effort and the money in salaries, etc. spent on Xenothreat and Siege over the years had been instead spent on building out the crafting and blueprint system that CIG are just now starting to develop. Would the whole game not be in a much better overall place? Imagine we had thousands of blueprints for items, ships parts, building components, and even space station components. Imagine if that system was already in game now, ready for server meshing and ready for player-made and player-owned base building. Yes, let's come back to reality, but until there is territory to own, build on and defend, there are no real long-term goals in the game. Or how about the reputation system? The mission team do actually own the rep system now, so is it fair to say now that the extended time spent on getting Xenothreat working will have affected the work on the reputation system for 4.0? Since Rich Tyra has taken over as the boss of the PU, there seems to have been a push to form Star Citizen into a real game, 1.0. I would ask him if dynamic events are really worth the dev effort until after 1.0. We were supposed to have a new event, a new version of Ninetales Lockdown, Blockade Runner, and that seems to have gone missing, and I actually do hope that they've canned it for now. Bring it back once server meshing is working well and performance is decent, otherwise I predict just another broken slideshow. And we've not even mentioned performance yet. Even on a very high-end system, good chunks of this mission have been sub 30 FPS. I dread to think how this will perform on some lower-end systems. For someone new to the game, surely the performance combined with the bugs of the mission leave a seriously bad taste in the mouth, even if the concept of the mission overall is cool. For now at least, CIG seems to be committed to these events. Why? Well, I can think of three main reasons. Number one, they clearly believe in the concept of these larger missions that bring players together. And in theory, all of these missions, if they work properly, they would probably be fun enough to grind out if there was a decent enough reward at the end. Overdrive proved that a large part of the player base just want a decent reward as a light at the end of the tunnel. And these events are at least different from the everyday experience of Star Citizen. In the long-term future, the idea of the Vandal invading a system like Xenothreat do here, causing havoc, completely disrupting the economy and forcing players to band together to clear them out sounds like fun. Move that event around the galaxy, reward players for participating, it'll work well. And I'm sure CIG will get more creative than that. But I think you can see that these sorts of global events probably do have a place in the game in the long term. The second reason why I think CIG are probably continuing with these events is that I assume working on these events has actually been useful for development. In the same way that for a child at school, learning basic maths concepts then allows them to go on and learn more complicated things, I think we have to assume that the work CIG has done on Xenothreat and Siege has improved the skills of the devs and actually will help in the future. Now, there is a chance that that isn't true at all, and these have just been a painful time sink for the dev teams. And another counter to this would be that surely all this time and effort that they put into Xenothreat this time around, aren't they going to have to rework most of it once server meshing comes in? Surely the long-term future of this event is that it runs on its own server with massively improved server performance. And the third reason why CIG are probably still doing these events, and probably the big one, is going to be our favourite marketing. For a while now, CIG has been using these events to sell ships. We get these pages with each event that suggests ships that would be helpful to complete it. And actually, you could argue that the main reason that CIG actually pushed this Xenothreat live in such a bad state was that they just had to finish off this whole Overdrive mission chain, which is just one big marketing campaign for the Hornet Mark II. CIG will have data about new players joining in these events, people buying ships and player participation. I assume at the very least, Xenothreat does bump up player concurrency numbers, although that actually hasn't been that evident on the servers I've been on. If they continue to run them, it's probably for good reason. And I personally don't get too upset about CIG's marketing tactics. It's a necessary evil and has been crucial to get the game to where it is now. So while we might be frustrated that Overdrive and Xenothreat appear to have been driven by the need to market the Hornet, I think we have to let CIG. Whether you like these reasons or not, if I was in charge, we wouldn't see Siege of Orison or Xenothreat again until 1.0. Give us more gameplay, bring in more star systems, give us long-term goals, give us server meshing in a working place. Make sure you don't have to rework these events over and over again. If these events performed well and they weren't so buggy, I think they'd probably be a net positive for the game right now, but they don't. As they stand, the damage they do to Star Citizen's reputation, combined with the amount of dev effort, means they can't be worth it, surely.